Hey, amazing viewers, I love connecting with you all around the world. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share will leave you inspired and ready to take control of your own life. In today's story, you'll hear about an incredible twist that no one saw coming. Also, if this is your first time here, press the subscribe button and join our incredible journey. It was supposed to be the best day of Elijah Jackson's life. He had been looking forward to it for months. At just 16, Elijah was already obsessed with aviation. His room was decorated with charts of flight paths, images of aircrafts, and books about the science of aviation. While most of his friends dreamed of being social media influencers or athletes, Elijah had only one ambition: become a commercial airline pilot. He could name any aircraft just by the sound of its engines. To him, airplanes were not just machines, they were his future. And that Tuesday, it was the day he would take a step closer to his dream. Horizon Airlines was hosting its special Career Shadow Day, an exclusive event where young people could get a glimpse into the world of aviation. Elijah had applied, written an essay that impressed the judges, and won a spot to tour the operations center, learn about flight planning, and meet real pilots. It was his golden ticket. His excitement was palpable. From the moment he entered the airport, everything felt bigger. The airplanes, the control tower, the bustling terminal. It was a dream come true. He couldn't stop grinning as his tour guide, Miss Tanya Reynolds, explained the complex systems that kept the airport running. He soaked it all in, asking detailed questions about flight dynamics, weather patterns, and the intricacies of aircraft maintenance. Miss Reynolds was impressed. "You really know your stuff, Elijah," she said with a smile. "I think you're going to go far in this industry." But little did Elijah know, this day would soon take an unexpected turn, one that would make him question everything he believed in. Around noon, Miss Reynolds received a call. "Elijah, I'm so sorry, but there's an urgent matter I need to handle. It'll only take about 20 minutes. Why don't you wait right here in the pilot's lounge? They're showing a fascinating documentary about the evolution of commercial aviation on TV." Elijah agreed eagerly. This was his moment to relax, reflect, and learn more. He found a seat by the TV, watching as it flashed images of early flight pioneers and the groundbreaking technology that made modern aviation possible. He was so engrossed in the documentary that he didn't notice when the room slowly began to empty. Other pilots had started leaving for their flights, but Elijah didn't mind. He was in the right place, at the right time, living out his dream. That's when she walked in. Captain Rebecca Whitman. She was a senior pilot with over 20 years of experience, and when she entered the room, Elijah's dream day began to unravel. Captain Whitman, without even pausing to assess the situation, scanned the room. Her gaze landed on Elijah, sitting alone. A young black teenager in the pilot's lounge, looking out of place, not wearing a uniform like the others. Without a second thought, she assumed the worst. She didn't see a future pilot. She saw someone who didn't belong. The tension in the room shifted as she walked up to Elijah, a sense of authority radiating from her every step. She towered over him as she spoke sharply, her voice cutting through the quiet lounge like a blade. "What are you doing here? Who let you in?" Elijah froze, confusion flooding his mind. He was just watching a documentary, waiting for his guide. He had been invited. He had clearance, but it didn't matter. In Captain Whitman's eyes, he didn't belong. "Get out of here," she ordered, her words ringing in his ears. "This area is for authorized personnel only." What had he done wrong? What had he done to deserve this? He hadn't broken any rules. He was just waiting. But that didn't matter to her. To her, he was just a black kid in a place where he shouldn't be. And then she did something Elijah didn't expect. Something that would change the course of his day, and perhaps his life. She reached for her radio and spoke in a tone that sent chills down Elijah's spine. "Security, I need help. There's an unauthorized individual in the pilot's lounge. Please come immediately." The sound of her words echoed through the room. As heads turned, whispers filled the air, and Elijah's heart began to race. He had just wanted to be a part of something bigger, something that would lead him to the skies. But now his dream was crumbling before him. He hadn't done anything wrong, but in that moment, no one was listening. If you've ever been judged by the color of your skin, you know the feeling. The unfairness, the confusion, and the helplessness that comes with it. Elijah wasn't just a kid waiting for his tour guide. He was now a suspect, a threat in a place where he had every right to be. And that, my friends, was just the beginning. Imagine this. You've worked your whole life for a single moment, the kind of moment that will change everything. Your dreams are just within reach. You can almost taste the future. And then, in an instant, it all feels like it's slipping through your fingers. That's how Elijah Jackson felt as Captain Rebecca Whitman's voice boomed across the pilot's lounge, calling for security to remove him. For Elijah, this wasn't just about a misunderstanding. It was a slap in the face of everything he had worked for. He had spent countless hours studying aviation, dreaming of a day like this one. The thought that someone would question his right to be there was unthinkable. But in Captain Whitman's eyes, it didn't matter how much effort he had put into this moment. He was a black teen, alone in a room full of professionals. That was enough to make him a target. As the security officers arrived, the crowd around him grew. Elijah could feel the weight of their stares. He had become the center of attention, but not in the way he had hoped. His heart pounded in his chest, and his hands trembled uncontrollably. How had things gotten so out of control? The officers, stern-faced and unyielding, began to question him in rapid succession. "What are you doing here? Who gave you this badge? Where did you get it?" Their words were like blows, each one adding to his fear. He tried to explain again, his voice shaking with desperation. "I'm here for the Career Shadow Program," he said, his words barely above a whisper. "Miss Reynolds, my tour guide, brought me here. You can call her. She's from HR. I'm just waiting." But the officers weren't listening. Instead, they focused on the one thing that had caused all this trouble. His appearance, his presence in the lounge, his badge, his very existence seemed to be questioned at every turn. Captain Whitman, who had already deemed him an intruder, watched from the sidelines, her arms crossed and her gaze unwavering. She was convinced Elijah didn't belong, and her certainty only amplified the tension in the air. To her, this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a threat that had to be dealt with. But Elijah, in that moment, realized something. He realized that this wasn't just about a mistake or a miscommunication. It was bigger than that. It was about the deep-seated biases and assumptions that many people held, whether they realized it or not. It was about the belief that a young black boy, sitting quietly in a pilot's lounge, didn't belong in a space meant for professionals. Elijah's stomach twisted as he thought of his mother. She had always told him to rise above, to prove the doubters wrong with his actions, not his words. But now, standing in front of security officers who were treating him like a criminal, he wasn't sure how to keep his head up. How could he prove them wrong when they refused to even see him? That's when he decided he wouldn't back down. He couldn't. His dream wasn't just about sitting in the cockpit of an airplane. It was about fighting for his place in a world that often told him he didn't belong. And no matter how big the obstacle or how unfair the situation, Elijah wasn't going to let one person's prejudice define his future. "Please," Elijah's voice cracked. "Just call Miss Reynolds. She'll tell you who I am. I'm not here to cause any trouble." As the words left his lips, something shifted in the room. The tension was palpable, but Elijah stood firm. This was his dream, and he wasn't about to let anyone take it away from him, not without a fight. But little did Elijah know, the real twist of this story was just about to begin. His mother, the woman who had raised him to be strong and unapologetically himself, was on her way, and she would change everything. As the seconds ticked by, Elijah's heart raced faster. His hand shook, but he forced himself to keep them steady. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about proving that his dream, his place in the world, mattered. As the two security officers continued to question him, the room felt colder, more distant. But then, just as his hope began to waver, the door to the pilot's lounge swung open with a quiet force that cut through the tension like a blade. A woman walked in with a purposeful stride, confident, poised, and commanding attention. It was Elijah's mother. She wasn't just any mother. She was the CEO of Horizon Airlines, the company that had invited Elijah to this very event. She was the kind of woman who had worked her entire life to break barriers, to shatter the glass ceilings that had stood in her way. She knew what it felt like to be underestimated, to have people doubt her because of the color of her skin. And she was about to make sure Elijah wouldn't face that same fate. The room fell silent as she entered. Elijah's eyes widened with a mix of relief and disbelief. His mother had always been a rock for him, but now, in this very moment, she was going to be the one to turn the tide. She didn't even look at him as she walked straight to Captain Whitman, who still stood with a look of smug authority on her face. "Captain Whitman, I understand there's a misunderstanding here," Elijah's mother said, her voice calm yet firm. "I'm the CEO of Horizon Airlines. This young man is my son. I invited him here for the Career Shadow Day, and I can assure you, he has every right to be here." Captain Whitman's expression faltered, her eyes flickering with surprise and then discomfort as she realized the gravity of her actions. The room, which had been full of judgment and doubt, now seemed to shrink in size, as if it was suddenly clear that the power dynamic had shifted. Elijah's mother turned to the officers, her voice steady but laced with authority. "If there's any question of the validity of his clearance, you can check the records, but I trust that, as employees of this company, you understand the importance of giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, especially when it comes to our future leaders." For the first time in what felt like hours, Elijah felt a surge of hope. His mother wasn't just defending him. She was teaching him something crucial, something that would stay with him forever. In a world that often judges you before knowing your story, your worth is determined by how you stand up for yourself. His mother had shown him that. She had shown him the power of owning his place in the world. He didn't have to apologize for dreaming big. He didn't have to shrink because of the assumptions others made. And most importantly, he didn't have to let anyone, no matter how powerful or influential they seemed, decide his future for him. The officers, though clearly embarrassed, apologized, and Captain Whitman's authority crumbled in the face of Elijah's mother's calm assertion. The tension in the room evaporated as quickly as it had arrived. Elijah's dream hadn't been destroyed, it had been fortified. Because sometimes in life, it's not enough to just follow the rules. Sometimes you have to fight for your right to be seen, to be heard, and to belong. As the scene came to a close, Elijah's mother pulled him into a quiet corner of the lounge, her hand resting on his shoulder. "You've got a long road ahead of you, Elijah," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "But I need you to remember something. Your dreams are yours to protect. Don't ever let anyone take them away from you." Elijah nodded, a new sense of strength in his chest. He knew that this moment would shape his future, just as much as his love for aviation had. And as he looked at his mother, his mentor, his role model, he understood what true strength was. It wasn't about the barriers you faced. It was about how you chose to break them. The crowd slowly dispersed, and the whispers that had once filled the air faded. Elijah stood there, his head held high, ready to take on whatever came next. His dream had survived. And in that moment, he realized that no one, not even the strongest or most powerful person in the room, could take away what was already his passion, his purpose, and his unwavering belief in himself. The world may try to hold you back, but remember this: your dreams are unstoppable when you have the courage to stand tall and claim them.